Okay, we just saw the wrong footage, all of you. I'm so sorry. I have to apologize. That was the raw footage.
Oh,
These young people made a beautiful Get Out the Vote video for Democrats Abroad, and that was the raw footage of the song. But they made the song for us, and it was about moving this country in a different direction. So I don't know. That was definitely my error. I uploaded the original raw footage instead of the collaborative video that they made.
well, we'll put the link to the real video up.
Yeah, so I apologize. The actual Get Out the Vote video is on the Democrats Abroad Women's Caucus Facebook page with appropriate pictures of Women's March and so forth. But the sentiment is there in the text. We need to move this country in a different direction. So I apologize.
That's right. Well, it was still a good song. So I think we will all survive having listened to the song.
If you want to see the actual campaign version, it's on the Facebook page.
Well, all right. So our next segment, which oddly enough, we are a little bit behind, but that's okay. We have another Vote Earth segment, and it's with Heidi Burch. Heidi volunteered as the Get Out the Vote coordinator and volunteer director for DA Canada and joined the global GOTV team in 2016. And in 2017, Heidi became the global co-chair of the GOTV. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce you to Heidi. Take it away.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see and hear me okay. It's been wonderful listening. Mark did an awesome presentation. Thank you so much. I'm here to talk about what you can do to get out the vote because voting blue is going green. We are, as much as we're doing individually, having a US government that is behind this effort instead of actively impeding it will make things 10,000 times better. I mean, I'm old enough to remember in the 2000 election when people were saying no big deal between Gore and W. And if you can imagine the difference 20 years later, if we had had a green president like Al Gore as opposed to an oil and gas guy like Bush and Cheney in there, that's the difference. This planet is not going to be able to handle 4 more years of Trump and the Republicans in power in the US, no matter what the rest of the world does. They're just too big of an influence. So you as a voter have a huge responsibility to get out the vote, both for yourself and for anyone else who is a US citizen. Living abroad, particularly, is our group, but any US citizens, the folks back home as well. I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm not quite sure how to do it, but I do have a presentation about.
I can run your slides, Heidi. No
problem. Okay, great. Great. I'll go through them quickly because I have some slides about how to help people fill out their form to request their register to vote from abroad, which also requests their ballot. Because of the COVID-19 situation, we are not able to do a major portion of our outreach, which is setting up voter registration events, setting up tables in well-trafficked US citizen areas, and using those to help people fill out their forms. But we can do it by Zoom, by remote things, and just if someone needs help, we always send them to votefromabroad.org. And that .org part is very important. I know you've heard it several times today already. But that's a website that Democrats Abroad set up for people to use to fill out their form. It's just a one-page form. We send it in as overseas voters, and it gets us an overseas ballot. Next slide, please. This is a whole long training that I'm not going to go into in depth, but it's going to give you an overview of what the form requires, how you can help people fill it out and send it in. And next slide. When you're doing voter registration events, whether they're live or a Zoom one or whatever, they have to be nonpartisan unless it's specifically a Democrats Abroad event. If it's just for Democrats Abroad, you can be, partisan as you want, but for general public, it's got to be nonpartisan. We help anyone who is a US citizen register to vote, regardless of their political persuasion. Next slide. These are just some acronyms you'll run across. Not that important right now. The one that I'll point out is FPCA is the form we're filling out. It's the Federal Postcard Application. It used to look like a postcard is why it's called that. The other one on there that I'll use a lot is LEO, which is Local Election Official. This is the person typically at the county level where you send your form to. They keep the voter rolls, decide whether to accept your voter registration, and also send out your ballot. Very important people. Next slide. So basically, all US citizens living abroad can vote in US federal elections. A lot of people don't know this. They think it's only president. You can vote for president, you can vote for the US Senate in your state, and US House in your district. That includes midterms and primaries. Some states, quite a few actually, will allow overseas voters to vote in state and local elections. Depends on your state though. And we do have that information on votefromabroad.org. We have a state voting guide that's linked to on every page. You can go there, find your state. It will say what your state requires and what the deadlines are for your state, and also how to contact your county officials. So it takes 3 steps to vote from abroad. You have to fill out and send in your federal postcard application. Then they will send you your blank ballot. You need to vote it and then send it in by the deadline. 3 steps, and the main thing is hitting those deadlines. Next slide, please. So this is what the form looks like. It's 1 page. You can use it to both register to vote if you're not already, and also to request your ballot for that calendar year. You can also use it if you need to update your voter information for any reason. So it's a multi-purpose form. Next slide. Some people say, I'm already registered, my mom sends me my ballot, why should I bother sending out this form? And we really push people to send in the form because it does give you some advantages from a regular in-state absentee ballot. For one thing, it covers all elections in a calendar year. Many states will let you vote absentee, but you have to request that absentee ballot every election. This will cover you from January 1 to December 31. The ballots must be sent to you as an overseas voter at least 45 days before an election. Some states, it's only 30 days for absentee ballots, and we usually need that extra time. For the November 3rd general election, that means ballots will get sent out to overseas voters by September 19th. So it's also good to know when to start looking for it. You can request that your blank ballot be sent to you electronically by email, online, or fax. Again, a huge time saver, and maybe the only way to get your ballot if you are in a place that's not getting mail from the US. A lot of states will provide more time to return the voted ballot. They'll give an extra 7 to 10, even 20 days for it to get returned, or they'll allow you to return it electronically. The option is also there if you've used your FPCA form and you don't get your ballot in time, you can use the federal write-in absentee ballot, the FWAB, to vote and make sure that your vote gets back in time. Next slide. We also recommend you send it in every calendar year. That is the federal law minimum, that it has to be good for a calendar year. Some states are more generous. They'll say every 2 or 4 years. The problem is people forget, or they think, I'm a 4-year state. I've gotten my ballot in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. They send it to me all the time. They did, but they're going to stop. So it's just easier not to take the risk, particularly for a hugely important election like this one. And also, even states that are blue states do voter purges. And I think Los Angeles County in 2018 got rid of like 1 million voters. Just be safe, send it in. It's a 1-page form, and you'll get all the benefits, and you'll make sure you get your ballot. Next slide, please. So we highly recommend you use votefromabroad.org if you have internet access. It gives you all the information that you need for your state. It's, like I said, a multi-purpose form. It covers all 56 voting jurisdictions. Each state has their little quirks, and if you don't know what they are, if you're not using votefromabroad.org, you have to look that up in this great big book called the Voter Assistance Guide. It's just easier to do it online if you have internet access. If you don't, we can help you out, but start there. Next page. This is what Vote from Abroad start page looks like. You just go there and hit start. And it will help you fill out the form legibly, which is another major reason to use it, because the major reason that the forms get rejected is the Leo can't read the information. It will give you detailed instructions for submitting the form, and also to remind you to verify that it's been received. That's a very important part. We have this really cool feature that you can sign the form online and submit it directly from the website, so you don't need to print it out. That's really very helpful. There's a chat box in the lower right-hand corner there, that orange circle. You can ask questions. It comes to a voter help desk where we have our voter registration experts, we like to call ourselves, and they can answer any questions that you might have. And one of the things we here at Democrats Abroad really like is that there is an option to join or verify your membership in Democrats Abroad. Keeps our membership records up to date, so we can send out voter information to people as well. And there is a tip there: if you're helping someone to do it at a voter registration event or in person, if that ever happens again, it's good to use the incognito mode or private window so that the voter's information isn't saved on your device inadvertently. Next slide, please. We have a Spanish language version, /ES, or you can hit ES at the top of the screen. Next page. And we also set up one that's specifically for student or study abroad voter registration events. Again, some universities and places like that consider any mention of Democrats abroad to be too partisan. So we took out the part about whether the person wishes to join Democrats abroad. If for some reason Vote from Abroad is not available, or your venue just says, no, you can't use it, we think it's partisan, which it's not, they can use the federal government's website to fill out the form. That's fvap.gov. Stands for the Federal Voter Assistance Program. It also fills out the form. It doesn't have the direct submission. You must print it out to sign it and send it in. Is a major problem with, major difference with that. Plus, it doesn't let people join Democrats abroad. Next slide. If you don't have internet access, there is a fillable form at fvap.gov, which lets you at least fill it in and then print it out so it looks pretty and is nice and legible. So that's your second choice if internet access isn't available. You will have to go through the voter assistance guide to verify what your state requires, though, and to find the correct contact information where to send in the form. So it's a little bit more effort. Next slide. So I'm going to go through this quickly. It's just going through what you need to do to fill out the form on votefromabroad.org. Next slide. Pretty straightforward. You put in your contact information first, where you are now. Current number is there, but it's optional because it's highly unlikely that the local election official is going to call you outside of the US. Next page. There's a way to put in your country code there. You must provide your current non-US address. They will not send you your ballot. Well, they won't necessarily send you your ballot there. You can ask for it to be sent electronically, but they need to know that you are truly living outside the country and that you are eligible to be getting an overseas ballot. Next page. Then you must fill in the US voting address, which is the last place you lived in the United States. That tells them what your voting jurisdiction is, since all voting is run by the states. If you've never lived in the US, you were born outside the US to US parents, you use their last US address. And this applies even if you have no intention of going back to that address, you don't own the property, it doesn't even have to exist as a residence anymore. That was your last address, that's what your voting address is. Next page. We have some ideas for how you can try to figure out that last US address if you don't know what it is. But if people have problems with that, send them to us and we will help them out. Next page. As a civilian, you basically have three options: that you've never resided, or more likely that your return is uncertain, or that you intend to return to the US. That's basically your decision which one you put, because you're the only one who knows what your intent is. If you say your return is uncertain, you will definitely be able to vote in federal elections, and in some states, you'll be able to vote in state elections. If you say you intend to return, again, that's your intention. It doesn't have to require a set date or a plane ticket in hand, it's just your intention. And every state will allow you to vote in state as well as federal elections. There may be some state income tax implications. We don't provide tax advice. If you're worried about that, talk to a tax professional. Next page, but just be aware it exists. And then the never resided is for people who were born outside the US to US parents and have never lived in the US. Next page. We get into that a bit more. I won't bother with that here. Then you ask, and this is really one of the great things about using the FPCA form, is you can ask to have your ballot sent to you. The options are email or online or fax, in addition to mail. We highly recommend overseas voters request their ballot be sent to them electronically. Very few people still have fax, which is why we highlighted the email or online option. You can know that your ballot will get to you as soon as it's available. You can start checking your email September 19th. And you don't have to worry that it's gotten lost or delayed in the mail, or if you've moved or are traveling, it will always get to you. And we highly recommend they take that option. Next page. Next slide. Military voters have this different set of options. I'm not going to go into that right now. Next page. Identification tends to, sorry, I think you skipped the page there. There, no, sorry, slide 24. Okay, so date of birth, the male, female, decline to state. There's only 2 states that require you provide your gender, so it has to be on the form for everybody. But you can decline to state. Political party is optional. Some states with closed or semi-open primaries require you to declare a political party to be able to vote in the primary. If you choose anything but Republican, you will be asked if you want to join DA or if you're already a member. If you say you're Republican, you won't get that question. Next page. Social Security number, most states only require the last 4 digits. I think it's only 3 states that want the whole thing. And it's a little bit confusing rule because if you have it, you need to give it. But if you don't have it, you can say, I don't have the identification. And that's fine too. So, but if you do have a Social Security number, you should provide those last 4 digits. And if you still have a state ID, driver's license, you should provide that. But it's pretty much understood most overseas voters, since they don't live in the state, will not have state ID. Next page. And that's it. You filled out the form. The website gives you a chance to review it for any mistakes and to make any changes. And if it's all okay, you hit next. And next slide. It will give you instructions how to submit the form. Filling out the form online is not enough. It's got to get to your local election official in your voting state. Really good thing about Vote from Abroad is it gives you specific instructions how to submit the form. You can either download and print it, then sign it and send it in, or you can do it directly from Vote from Abroad. You photograph your signature, that pastes it to the form, and then you click submit. There are step-by-step instructions, but if anyone has problems with it, they can also use the chat box to get help. Next page. And there's just some more detail about how to do that direct email submission. Next page. And instructions how to instead print it out and mail it in, and you'll see that they give you the complete mailing information. Next page. And then if you've done it by a fillable or paper, you obviously have to find the contact information where to send it in, and then do it either by email attachment, fax, or mail, depending on what's available to you and what your state will allow. And I think that's most of it, but maybe just go to the next slide and see what's there. Some states only take it by fax. If you're registering to vote, for example, in California, you can do it by fax or mail. We have some ideas for how to send it in by fax, as most people no longer have fax machines. Next page. And mail's pretty obvious. Although with the current coronavirus restrictions, if you must submit it by mail, which for registering to vote, about 7 states want you to mail it in, require you to mail it in. If you're already registered and just requesting your ballot, only 1 state, Alabama, requires it be sent in by mail. Every other state will let you email it in. But if you must mail it in, there is, hopefully, mail service will start up again for most people. And there is the U.S. Embassy's diplomatic mail pouch, which you can use free of charge. Anyone can use it. Again, we're hoping that comes back again. Next page. And then this is another really important step. You've filled out the form, you've submitted it. Please remind people, and for yourself, verify with your local election official that they received your form and that they're going to be sending out your ballot. The state is not required to confirm they received it. A lot of them will not do so. You have to contact them separately. And frankly, they're going to be slammed. This is going to be a crazy year already. And with the coronavirus restrictions, they're just so far behind. So don't take a chance that your form was misdirected or lost somewhere. Contact them, make sure that they've received it and that there aren't any problems. The instructions that you get from Vote From Abroad will give you that contact information, or you can always find it on the state voting guide at votefromabroad.org. Next page. And then don't forget to vote. Look for your ballot 45 days before the election. Read the instructions carefully to fill it out. If you have any questions, contact us either through votefromabroad.org chat desk, or our email address is GOTV, which stands for Get Out the Vote, at democratsabroad.org. Or contact your Leo directly, because they are the ones who decide whether or not to accept the ballot. So they are the final word. They are the ones to make sure you follow whatever instructions they give you. Next page. And finally, if you don't get your backup ballot in time, your regular ballot in time, you're worried about the deadlines, you can always use the federal write-in absentee ballot, or the FWAB. It's a bit more complicated to do, but we have information on votefromabroad.org/FWAB that gives you a step-by-step overview of how to fill out and submit the FWAB. Next page. And that's it. We do have a sandbox site for somebody who's helping other people. If you want to try it yourself, it won't be sent in, so you don't have to worry that you're doing anything that's gonna affect your voting. You just start an anonymous session, go through it, try different things, and if you have any questions, there is that chat desk again to talk to us. Next page or slide. This deck is available online at the voter registration new volunteers training. If you go to democratsabroad.org, it will be there. And we also have other training materials available for people once we hopefully can do voter registration events. For now, our voter outreach is, doing phone banking, which I know other people have talked about. It's a great way for us to contact voters and make sure they know to fill out their form and be ready. This is not a year to wait to the last minute. Fill out your form now, get it in. We can also set up like online Zoom voter registration events to help people who are having problems filling out their forms. And we're just going to have to be very creative this year in terms of helping people who don't have access to a printer, are having trouble getting their forms signed and printed if they need to print it out. But we can do that online. And social media, putting up information online and reaching out to people so that we can help them. Next page. If people have questions, like I said, there's that little eye icon on the questions. There's this state voting guide that's on votefromabroad.org. And there's frequently asked questions document that's there's a link there when you go to the slides. Or the easiest thing is to use the chat box or to email us at gotv@democratsabroad.org. Or if you're at a voter registration event and you're being nonpartisan, there's help@votefromabroad.org. And we will do our best to respond very quickly. Next slide. And that's it. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for doing the slides, Angela. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Heidi, for coming on. Voting is the most important thing you can do this year. So please,
Yes.
please do it and request your ballot early. Don't wait. We don't know what, October, September is going to look like.
Oh God, no, don't wait until then.
Yeah, don't wait. It just gets harder.
I will say that for people who must mail it in, mail in their form, I know for a lot of places that's just not possible. Mail is not working. For those people, please get a contact so we can remind them in the future. Tell them, put a note on your calendar to check it again, in a month and, every couple of weeks after that. And we just have to keep on top of them to remind them for when mail opens up again to get their forms in. But yeah, the earliest deadlines to vote, to register to vote for the November election will be October 2nd or 3rd. So God willing, mail will be up and running well before then, but we just have to keep on top of things, and please don't wait till the last minute.
Yes.
Are there any questions? Anything I can help anybody with?
If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. Yeah.
I have a question.
Hi, Ann.
A general question. As caucus leaders, what can we do to help you? Because I know your job is the most important, and really everything that we do, all roads lead to Heidi and the GOTV. And so I'd like to know how Angela and I and other caucus leaders can help you more.
Oh, that's very sweet. I think the best thing to do is to reach out to your volunteers and make sure that they get trained, that they, if they're going to do phone banking, which we highly recommend, that they go to democratsabroad.org/phone banking or sign up for one of the phone banking seminars, training things. I know DA Germany's been doing them weekly. But get people trained up for that. Make sure they understand about vote from abroad, and are getting the word out to people to make sure that they know they can vote, that they need to send in this form, and that if they have any questions, please just let us know. Happy to get people involved, and just best way to do that is to know how to do it and to ask questions. Happy to answer any questions people have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. You are an integral part of all our actions.
She really is. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. Oh, and I wanted to say, we just started a thing. Julia Bryan has gotten Florida and I think other state Democratic Party websites will now have a pop-up if you check out their website from a non-US computer, directing them to vote from abroad. So I know that'll be really helpful for people who are just thinking, how do I vote? And just go to their state Democratic Party, so another way that we're directing people who are overseas voters who may have no idea what to do. And that is a real problem. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, Heidi.
All right, so we're headed down to